We're all good? We're good. Watch that finger. Hi. That's good. Hi, this is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here with Will Hilburn from Playco Games. We're going to be looking at Civicus dice game. And this is a pre-production copy, obviously, not finished. Finished artwork. Okay. Hope you can give an overview of how to play. What are we trying to do in the game? What's the setting? What's our goal?
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, I'll just say that my wife and I co-designed this game. We both study anthropology and love anything civilization themed. And so this is basically an area control game where you're just building a really sort of well-balanced civilization. So essentially, you don't want to build a lot of settlements unless you're going to control some farms to help feed those people. You're not going to want to control markets unless you have something to sell in those markets. And you're going to want to, control religion. So there's basically 3 ways to score. There's a scoring category that is theology or religion. That is the number of temples that you control times the number of sacred sites that you control, right? So that's a multiplier. So that's the first category. Second category would be your commerce score. So that's the number of markets that you control times the number of these exotic goods that you control. And you get those by rolling the dice, basically. So, and then the third scoring category is subsistence, and that is the number of settlements that you have, villages and cities, times the number of farms that you control. So that's the third scoring track, all right? So the way you place a settlement is really simple. On your turn, the first thing you do is place, move, or pull 1 camp. Camps are placed between 2 hexagons and have 1 point of influence on both hexagons that it touches. That's a bad example because you can't actually place on a volcano.
That's a volcano. What are we doing there?
That's my bad. Yeah, that's my bad. So you'll place that there, right? And that would give you, 1 point of influence on this farm and 1 point of influence on this mountain region, right? And so what these, so for example, this might be a better play, right? So I place my camp. The next thing that I do is extract resources. That tells me, okay, so this is telling me I control a desert and I control a mountain, right? So the second thing I do on my turn is roll any dice that I control. So I roll those dice, and that's going to give me some options, right? And so the exotics are really cool because you have to make a really tough decision right there. You can either take one of these physical exotic goods that are worth victory points times the number of markets you control, as I described earlier, or you can use it as a wild resource, right? So you can also use these resources to not only, develop the settlements you already have on the board, but you can also use them to kind of pump up different technology tracks, culture, different multipliers, which are other ways to get victory points. Another really important part of the game is reputation, right? So if you just run around and, knock people's pieces off of the board, and I'll show how that works in just a moment, you're considered a tyrant, right? And your people just abandon you and you lose the game that way. So if you attack too many times without sort of balancing out, so the way that you increase your reputation is by spending resources to make your people happy, right? So you throw festivals, right? You throw festivals, you make your people happy. So if you had to knock somebody off, you'd lose a little reputation, but then you throw a festival, you can kind of pump it back up. And that gives you different advantages in the game. So, okay, so basically the settlements work like this. You place a camp, then you spend resources to upgrade that to a village, right? And then you have a choice. You can either move here and take that farm, or you could move here and kind of work your commerce track, right? Because camps have 1 point of influence on the 2 domains. What we call the hexagons are domains, right? So that's 1 point of influence there. Let's say I move it into a village. So I build my village. Now I have 3 points of influence on these 3 domains, right? And then finally, I can upgrade that to a city. And then I just stack the pieces on top of each other. Now, what's interesting about a city is it gives you absolute control over those. So no one can take those from you at that point, right? But it does cost you 2 settlements, right? And you only have 6 to work with, right? So you got to make that decision. Do you want to invest into a smaller region, or do you want to have more camps and diversify, right? What's really cool, though, is you can also advance and create a wonder or a colossus, however you want to look at it. And that replaces your city with a colossus piece and frees these back up for future placement, right? All right, and so that's really the basic mechanic of the game. And essentially, you play 6 rounds in the full version of the game, and each round you score. So it's almost like each round is a generation. Right. And so you play 6 generations, and whoever has the highest score at the end of the game wins the game. So,
I believe you mentioned these are double-sided?
They are. There's an advanced version of the game, which is this. This is the advanced version.
Okay.
And so there's a lot more that you can do with, resources that you couldn't use to build on the board, right? So you can invest those into culture, which gives you more exotic goods, right? So it's like you've increased your culture, you're making cultural goods to sell in your markets, so to speak. Your technology allows you to re-roll. So if I wanted to re-roll that would give me one re-roll. Now I've got a stone to work with instead, right? And then this is your polity. That's essentially like, how are your people organized? Are you a band level society? Are you a tribe? Are you a chiefdom? Are you a state level society? And what that does is make your settlements on the board have more value, right? So if you decide you want to go with more of like a hunter-gatherer kind of society, then you have a lot of camps on the board, then you would want to increase this to tribe, and that gives all of your camps value, whereas otherwise your camps have no value, right? Your villages, you would have to be a chiefdom, and then that makes your villages worth more than they were naturally. And then if you make it all the way to state level society, your cities have more value, okay? And so, you're kind of balancing, because like, for example, here's the way, so if I build a city here and somebody has a camp here, right? Well, okay, so if this is, well, first of all, this is a village. I have 3 points of influence on this, right? This guy has a camp there, so he has 1 point of influence, but I have control over that because I have 3. Does that make sense? Yeah. What's really cool is when I build that into a city, any piece that's touching those 3 domains, they get knocked off and returned back to the player, right? So there's sort of a chess-like element as far as like knocking pieces off the board. And to avoid the kind of warfare, because I'm not a huge fan of war, I look at it more like assimilation, so smaller societies get absorbed into the city, if that makes sense. So what's really cool though is my wife and I play this game, and we never attack each other. We just play kind of hunter-gatherer societies, and then it's a matter of who does best with what they've got. Whereas, when I play my buddies, I might play a little more aggressive, get into some of their territories, knock their pieces off, and things like that. So it's a really fun. It plays with 2 players in about 30 minutes. You add 2 to 4, 3 and 4 players. It's about 15 minutes per player. So,
Thanks very much for the overview, Will.
Thank you guys.
There you
Appreciate
go.
it.